So for this video, we're going to be doing the brochure layout assignment, right? So I'm going to go into the instruction materials. Depending on what period you have, it might be in the week 16, week 17, but it is definitely going to be in the day 23 folder. Okay, here's the brochure layout. I have some instructions in here. I have the slides in here as reference. It has a breakdown in here. Another one, I have instructions, right? I have step by step. So the first one is to create a margin around our page, right? Create the columns, and then we're going to create margins for each column, right? So I'm going to go ahead and start by clicking on the Photo P link, right? I'm going to open a letter size page. So I'm going to go to File, New, right? Print and Letter. The only difference for this assignment is that we're going to be doing it in landscape, right? Right now it's in portrait, right, where the long part is up and down, but we need the long part to be side to side, right? So how do we do that? We're simply going to click on this button right here, right, and it's going to switch numbers. So it's going to say 11 up here, and it's going to say 8.5 down here, right? So I'm going to click on it once, and yeah, and there it is. I'm going to click on Create, and here is our landscape letter size page, right? So let's get started, right? The first thing to do is to create a margin, right? So this assignment is going to be pretty similar to the margin assignment, except it's going to be a landscape mode, right? So the measurements are switched around. So I'm going to go to View to add the guides, right? I'm going to add my first guide. Let me see here. Add the 0.25 margin, right? So pretty similar to the margin assignment, right? So the first guide we're going to add, right? We're adding it to the 0, so it's going to be exactly what the number says, right? Which is 0.25. Okay, I'm going to press OK, right? And we can see our margin is over here on this side, right? At the 0.25 inch space. So between the edge of the page and the guide, it's 0.25 inches, right? Exactly. So we're going to add the guide on this side, right? I'm going to go to View, Add Guide. And how do we find out what the number is to add the guide on this side, right? So from left to right, it's 11 inches, right? Instead of 8.5, so it's 11 inches for this because it's landscape, right? So we're going to take the number 11, right? The number 11 is going to be pretty important for this layout, right? So 11, right? To find out how to add a margin, right, on this side to the left, right? To the left of the ruler, right? We're going to need a smaller number than 11, right? Because we're going to go this side, okay? So, right, we take the length of the page minus the margin, right, which is 11 minus 0.25. That's the margin that we're using, right? You're going to add the number, which if you do your math correctly, it's 10.75, right? And here it is. Okay. So you're going to do the same thing for the vertical one, right? So I'm going to go to Add Guides, right? You're going to add the margin, and you're going to add the other side margin. You're going to take 8.5, right, which is the length from the top to the bottom, right? 8.5 minus the margin. That's going to be your second number, right? You're going to press OK. So there should be some guides up here and down here as well, right? That's what it should look like for the most part. Okay. Once we have the margin done, right, I'm going to go to View, Add Guides, right, to add some more guides. And we're going to create columns for this, right? So what numbers do we need to use to find out what numbers we need to use to create the guides, to add the guides, right? So we're going to take the space between the guides from left to right, right? So from this guide to this guide, we have to figure out what the measurement is, right? How do we find that out, right? So technically from the edge to edge is 11 inches, right? So 11, okay? Then we subtract the margin that we just took away from each side, right? So 11 minus 0.25 for this margin and 0.25 for this margin, right? You're gonna get a number, right? Make sure you guys have that number written down somewhere, or if you have a good memory, it'll be fine, right? So from so once you get the 11 minus 0.25 and 0.25, it's going to give you the exact measurement between the left guide and the right guide, right? It's going to tell you what space is in between here, right? And we need to figure out what that space is, because if we try to divide the columns between edge to edge, you can already tell that there's some space missing over here, right? And some space missing over here. And the middle one isn't going to have that margin. So we have to make sure that we only use the space that we're actually going to use, right? So 11 minus 0.25 minus 0.25 again, right? You're going to get a number, and you're going to divide that number by 3, okay? Because we're going to create 3 columns, right? If you needed to make 4 columns, you would divide it by 4, right? If you needed 2 columns, you would divide it by 2, right? But we need 3 of them, so we're going to divide that number by 3, okay? Once you get that number, you're going to add it in here. You're going to put comma, right? And you're going to insert your number in here, right? That number is also important. We're going to need that number again, right? Once you add the guide, it should be somewhere over here, right? Let's say it's at the 3, right? It's not at the 3, right? It's going to give you a number, a decimal number, okay? All right, so let's pretend that I did my math correctly and it landed me at 3, right? Once I divided by 3, okay? So once we have the first guide, right, to create our columns, okay? I'm going to take that number that I got, which was 3, and I'm going to multiply it by 2. I'm going to double it, right? I'm going to double that number. If I double that number, it will land me somewhere around 6, right? And then you're going to get your next guide. You're going to add that double guide, not the double guide, but that number that you added twice, you're going to add it in here as well, right? So I got 3. Let me see, I'm going to fix this. And I got 6, right? You need it to be exactly in the correct spot, right? This is not the correct answer, okay? You guys have to figure out what the math is, okay? Once you add your guides, there should be 2 guides in the middle of your page that is dividing the columns, right? So obviously I did it wrong because the columns are not evenly distributed, right? This one is the same size as this one, but this one is a little bit bigger, right? Yours should look more evenly distributed, okay? Once you have added your guides, right? We're gonna create a margin for each column, right? So right now the only margins are the ones at the top, right? The ones at the bottom, and only the first column has one on the left, and only the last column has one at the right, right? But these ones don't, the insides don't really have any, right? So we're gonna create a margin here on the left side of the guide and at the right side, right? So there's gonna be 3 lines here once we finish, okay? So what you're gonna do is you're gonna take the number of this guide, right? The one that you added for this one. You should be able to see it in your box right here, right? Your number, okay? What we're gonna do is we're gonna subtract the margin from this number, from the number that we added that guide, this one, right? You're gonna take that number, you're gonna subtract the margin, right? So for me, it would be 3 minus 0.25, right? That's the margin size. So 3 minus 0.25 is 2.75, right? I'm gonna press OK. And there should be a guide at the left side of the original guide, right? Now we need one over here on the right, right? How do we do that? We're gonna go back to the original number, right? This one right here. And we're going to add the margin, right? So I'm gonna put comma 3.25, right? If I take the number 3, the original number, add 0.25, it is gonna give me 3.25, right? I'm gonna press OK. And there is our right guide, right? So there should be 3 lines for this one, and we're also gonna do the same thing for this one, right? So you're gonna go to View, Add Guides. Our second original number is 6, right? I'm going to add some numbers, right? So 6 minus 0.25 is 5.75, right? And to add the margin is gonna be 6 plus 25, which is 6.25, right? And that's what it should look like for the most part, right? For this assignment, right? We need to create the margin space. We need to find out where the number is to add our, to separate our columns, right? And then we have to create the margin guides once we figure out what the number is, right? Once you finish, you need to take a picture. Make sure that the ruler is out, Okay, you have to have the ruler out. If your ruler is not out, then you will not receive the full points for this assignment. You're gonna get half points. Make sure that your ruler is out. Okay, I'm gonna go to view and click on rulers if you do not see your ruler, right? So if it looks like this, you're gonna go to view and click on rulers, right? Once you click on it, the ruler should come out. Okay, make sure it's in the inches format. You're gonna right click and it should give you the option to change it to inches. Okay, if you cannot right click, you're gonna go to edit and preferences and you can change it from here into inches, right? Once you have your ruler out, you're gonna take a picture, right, of the ruler included, right, with your whole workspace right here, right? And you're gonna submit this into Schoology and then you're done.